Hey everybody, my name is Jeff Struker, and I recorded this video to tell you about these timeless principles that I learned when I was in Ranger School. You see, I joined the Army a long time ago because I wanted a challenge. And then I became an Army Ranger because I wanted to be able to face any obstacle or handle any enemy that my nation was facing. And I didn't know it at the time, but I had the honor of serving among some legendary warriors. These guys became for me an unbeatable army. And I picked up a couple of principles while I was going through Ranger training that have stuck with me for the rest of my life. Some of those principles, it has been a minute since I've been to Ranger School, but they still carry with me to this day. And I just wanted to share with you those principles that I learned when I was in Ranger training, like brotherhood. See, the very first thing that I did in Ranger School was I got assigned a Ranger buddy. It was somebody that I had never even met before, but they put us together and they said, you two guys are going to be inseparable. Don't ever get farther than an arm's reach apart. This Ranger buddy was so close to me that when I did something wrong, he got in trouble along with me. When he did something wrong, I got in trouble along with him. And we forged into this unbeatable brotherhood. And if you really want to be unbeatable, I just want to challenge you for that mate that's right next to you, the spouse that you're married to, that business partner that you're doing work with. That person is invaluable to your success if you're going to be unbeatable. You see, the truth is that the person next to you is far more important than the obstacle that's in front of you. And if you're going to be unbeatable, you're going to need a brotherhood or a sisterhood around you. The next principle that I learned in Ranger School was exhaustion. And I mean, I averaged maybe 45 minutes of sleep on a good day in Ranger School. Picture this in your mind. I traveled with a heavy load over some difficult terrain for 23 hours a day and got maybe 45 minutes of sleep each night for months in Ranger School. And I learned that sleep is a necessary luxury. Sleep will catch up with you at some point. But there are guys and gals that just procrastinate their way through life. They just put off today what could be done because they're waiting for the last minute. And if you're one of those procrastinators, I just want to challenge you. The whole world chases an elite few group of guys and gals. And the reason why they're miles ahead of everybody else is because they're already up and down the road to greatness, while the average guy or gal is still in bed asleep. And if you're going to be unbeatable, if you really want to be great, then you're going to have to be willing to give up a few things along the way, maybe even give up a little sleep and face some exhaustion. Ranger School not only taught me exhaustion, but the next principle that I learned in Ranger School all too well is hunger. You see, I went for weeks, months without regular food. I knew what it was like to be hungry before going to Ranger training, but I've never experienced hunger like that before. And I learned that hunger will reveal what's deep inside your character. Hunger doesn't make you a better person, but it will bring to the surface what's really inside your character. You see, in Ranger School, there was one person that didn't survive. There was one person that everybody hated, and there was no way they were going to survive. And that person is what we called a chow thief. They're the ones that when you sent them out to go get some food for everybody in the patrol, they came back with a little bit more food for themselves. They took for themselves before they were willing to give to everybody else. And I realize you may never face this kind of hunger, but here's my challenge for you. If you're in the middle of trying circumstances, if times are really lean right now, I would trust a starving stranger before I would trust my fat friend, because hunger reveals what's deep inside your character. Ranger School taught me perspective. Man, did it teach me perspective. You see, when it was tough, I started to feel bad for myself. One of the most difficult moments of my life was when I was standing in the water up to here, freezing cold waters in the swamps of Florida, and I thought I wasn't going to be able to make it. We were just getting ready to cross over the Yellow River, and I had been in water at this point for hours, and I started to face hypothermia, and I was at my breaking point. This was literally one of the most challenging moments of my life. I was just about ready to give up when the patrol next to me pulled up. You see, when these guys next to me pulled up, I couldn't see them, but I could hear them. They were close enough to know that not only was that water up to their waist, it was up to their neck. And when the patrol next to them got close, I could hear that the water was already over their head. And this is the moment that life got into perspective for me. Here's what standing in that freezing cold water in Florida taught me about perspective. No matter how hard it is for you right now, and life may be really tough, it can always get tougher. And keep in mind that although this is miserable, it could be worse for you. Ranger School was a lesson every day in adversity. The next principle that I learned in Ranger School about adversity was while I was walking through the high desert of Dugway Proving Ground, Utah, in the middle of snow up to my knees and a brutal cold wind in my face. And I remember thinking to myself as I walked all night long, still not at my objective, that no matter how hard I tried, no matter how far I walked, I wasn't really making any progress. And there was a moment where my mind was just about ready to give in. You see, here's this timeless principle that I learned from Ranger School. Your mind will always take you further than your muscles will. And there will be moments where your body is physically exhausted and ready to give in, but as long as your mind is strong, you will be able to continue moving. The next principle that I learned in Ranger School is toughness. And here's what I learned about toughness. Tough times don't last. They will come and they will go. But tough people do. They're still around no matter the circumstances. You see, in Ranger School, there were always difficult circumstances around us, and the guys and gals that were tough enough to handle those difficult circumstances were still standing around at the end of the course. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. You're going to face obstacles. You are going to go through difficulties and adversity. And the average person is going to try to run away from those tough times. But the unbeatable guy or gal is the one who stares adversity in the face and doesn't run away from it, but stands up to it. And by the way, when you stand up to adversity today, you become a little bit tougher, so that when the bigger problems happen tomorrow, you're now more prepared for them. Ranger School taught me, if you want to be unbeatable, you got to be tough. The next principle that I learned in Ranger School is all about the fundamentals. You see, when you're cold, when you're tired, when you're hungry, your brain starts to focus on the necessities of life. And you can't do the big, complex missions anymore because you just don't have the mental capacity to pull it off. So in Ranger School, we had this phrase called the KISS principle. And I don't mean KISS, I'm talking about keep it simple, stupid principle. You see, the KISS principle was all about reminding us that when it's really, really at its worst, it's the simplest plans that will succeed. I've never met a team, I've never seen an organization when times are hard that didn't succeed if they had already mastered the principle. So here's my challenge to you. If you want to master these principles about Ranger School, then you gotta focus on the fundamentals. You will never go wrong working on the fundamentals and mastering the very basics. The next unbeatable principle that I learned in Ranger School is all about teamwork. You see, this Ranger buddy that I had when I was in Ranger School, we were never supposed to get more than an arm's length apart. And then there was a moment in Ranger School where I got too far away from my Ranger buddy, and those instructors found us and they started to put us in these push-up positions to remind us about the value of teamwork. I spent what felt like hours in the dirt right next to this Ranger buddy of mine because he and I messed up and we didn't take teamwork seriously. And if you really want to be unbeatable, you are not good enough to master the challenges in front of you all on your own. You need a team around you. And the kind of people that you need on that team are the guys and the gals that are going to be in the dirt with you when life gets hard. When you've got people like that on your team, you are on your way to becoming unbeatable. The next timeless principle that I learned from Ranger training that helped make me unbeatable is all about my deficiencies. You see, there was a moment where me and my Ranger buddy got sent way out in front of everybody else. We got put on the side of this mountain in the brutally cold temperatures, in the middle of the winter, laying in the snow, in the shade, under a tree, in an observation position. Our job was to warn the rest of the patrol if an enemy started to move towards the rest of my buddies. And I laid in this observation position, getting colder and colder every minute, to the point where I was ready to break. I didn't think I could handle it anymore, so I was concerned about my own health, but I was looking at my Ranger buddy, and he started to lose it. In fact, it got so bad that they pulled us both off the side of that mountain and sent us to a hospital, and he almost died on that mountaintop in that brutally cold temperature. And in those moments, I realized that my greatest challenge is not the enemy. It's not the environment. My greatest challenge is leading myself. The toughest person I've ever had to lead in my life is myself. And when you meet up against your deficiencies, you learn really quickly where your limitations are. So if you're going to be unbeatable, you're going to have to get up every day and you're going to have to stare down your adversity. You're going to have to face your deficiencies, and you're going to have to learn to lead yourself first before you can lead anybody else. Here's one of those vivid moments that I will never forget from Ranger School about quitting. You see, if you really want to be unbeatable, there are going to be moments where you're going to want to quit. And the guys around me who quit in Ranger School were usually 5 minutes away from success. There was a phrase that we used in Ranger School for the guy or the gal that quit. We called it LOM, which stands for lack of motivation. It was simply not being tough enough that caused them to mentally give in and then eventually to raise their hand and to quit. And there are going to be moments where you're going to feel like quitting. But I want you to keep in mind that the guys or the gals that finally achieve greatness, they all do it by just hanging on 5 minutes longer than everybody else who quits around them. So if you really want to be unbeatable and you're facing the moments in your life where you're just certain you can't go any farther and you want to give in, then don't focus on the finish line. Just focus on the next step. Just focus on making it through today. And if you can make it through today, when you get up tomorrow, just focus on tomorrow. And eventually, you'll end up standing at the top of the mountain and conquering the finish line when everybody else around you quit. If you're going to be unbeatable, never, ever quit. I've learned a lot of timeless principles because of Ranger School that made me unbeatable. But the final principle that I learned is about travail. It's about hardship. It's about difficulties. It's about what we used to call in Ranger School embracing the suck when life was really tough. You see, when it gets hard, everybody wants to run away from the challenges. But if you will become the kind of guy or gal that learns to embrace the suck no matter how bad it gets, you're going to learn something that only travail can teach you. You can't learn this in any classroom or in any environment anywhere else on the planet. You're going to learn about you. The greatest lessons that I've learned in my life, I learned during the most difficult moments. What Ranger training taught me is about me. It showed me my limits, and it told me that my limits are far greater than what I thought they were. And I am the guy standing in front of you today, many years out of Ranger School, because of the travail and the hardships and the adversity that I faced in Ranger training. Those timeless principles made me unbeatable. They stick with me to this day. And if you want to be unbeatable, just simply get up tomorrow and handle that adversity and face that travail by following these timeless principles. And you too will become part of this unbeatable army of incredible men and women who can handle anything life throws at them. Thanks, and I'll see you guys around.